Fewer than 130 riders are left to face the last day in the mountains of this year's Tour de France. They leave Pamplona in Spain, heading back across the Pyrenees for the French border town of Hendaye. The mountains, the highest today is just over 1,000 meters, carry the riders back to France. The distance is 154.5 kilometers, and the good news, the final 20 kilometers are flat. And I should imagine the sight of the sea here in Hendaye will be a source of welcome relief to those remaining in this year's Tour de France. Well, there were many changes over the past 2 days, so let's now update you with all of the Jersey competitions. In the overall classification, Bjarne Riis has crushed the opposition in the Pyrenees and now leads his teammate Jan Ullrich by almost 4 minutes. Richard Virenque is up to third in a fully international standing, where the first 7 riders are from 7 different nations. Losing their way in the Pyrenees, Abraham Olano and Tony Rominger. They're now down to 9th and 10th, while Miguel Indurain is over 15 minutes back in 11th. But Evgeny Berzin, well, he hurts the most. He has plunged to 19th, almost 38 minutes behind. Chris Boardman has not enjoyed the Southern Mountain chain either, and is now 41st. In the green jersey points competition, Eric Zabel is proving an equally obstinate leader and has a lead of 57 points. He leads over the Frenchman Frédéric Moncassin. A high finish today for Zabel, and that could end this competition with 3 days to go. The King of the Mountains is, for a third year, the private domain of Richard Virenque, who is 109 points ahead of Bjarne Riis. And providing Virenque finishes in Paris, he'll become the first triple winner of the competition since Julio Jimenez 30 years ago. In the young rider competition, Jan Ullrich has been outstanding and leads by virtue of his second place overall. This year, this classification has been dedicated to the memory of the Italian Fabio Casatelli, the Olympic champion who died in the race last year when he crashed in the Pyrenees. During the race's passage through the mountains, the Tour de France visited the new memorial on the Col de Porte d'Aspet. Race director Jean-Marie Leblanc, Casatelli's Motorola team manager Jim Okowitz, and rider and teammate Frankie Andreo, seen here placing a wreath, were present at a short but moving ceremony. And I think everybody on the Tour de France remembering that black day in this race almost exactly a year ago. Back onto the open road, the sprint coming at Zubiri after only 15 kilometers, and the leader of the classification, full points to him, Eric Zabel, gaining 2 more points over Frédéric Moncassin, Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov third.
A hot day in store for the riders again. High 32 degrees Celsius on both French and Spanish sides of the border. A weak wind from the northeast will be around about 20 kilometers an hour.
And don't forget to have a go at our competition. We'd like you to pick the winner of Sunday's final stage of the Tour de France. It's 147 kilometers from Palaiseau to the Champs-Élysées in the center of Paris. The number to ring when you think you know who's going to win the stage is 0891 11 44 00, and you could be the lucky recipient of a yellow jersey and one of those lines that the overall leaders hold up each evening. The riders out on the open roads are tackling the second category climb of the Col d'Ispiguy after 88 kilometers, and there are now 11 men out in front. Pascal Hervé of France first over the top, followed by Andrea Ferragato and Eric Breukink of Holland. The main field coming over, enjoying the sunshine, and the yellow jersey looking very contented down there of Bjarne Riis, and the gap 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And if you're wondering today why we're only seeing pictures from our helicopter, it's because the motorcyclists have all gone on strike. The press photographers, the radio tour and the television cameras, in protest against the situation which happened yesterday on the mountains in the Pyrenees. And what they say happened was that the Kelme team car driver, Alvaro Pino, knocked off a motorcyclist and a photographer from the L'Equipe newspaper, and they say he did it on purpose. This morning, the motorcyclists made their protests known, and then later, Roger Leger represented the director sportif, who said that it most certainly wasn't intentional and it was an accident of the race. So there's a stalemate, and as a result, the motorcyclists are not taking part in the Tour de France today. Well, here's the field now climbing the second category climb of the day, the Puerto Atondo, approaching 107 kilometers. They go over the top 7 minutes and 13 seconds now behind, in fact, 13 leaders. There were 11 leaders, but Bruno Thibault of Motorola and Boscadin, they have got on, and they have strengthened that group to 13 men. There we are, just under 40 kilometers to go to the finish. It looks now, Paul, as though they have read the race right today.
But most certainly, there are so many riders, I think, tired after the last 2 days in the Pyrenees, which were very difficult, made even more difficult, I think, by the heat that has reigned over the Tour de France. And once this breakaway actually managed to get away, then they decided that would let them have their freedom.
7 minutes and 13 seconds, and it's excellent work by Patrick Jonker down there in the pink, because he's the highest placed overall. Just as it looked as though he would arrive in Paris in 17th place, he's got into a move here which is likely to lift him up to the top 15 finishers. In only his second Tour de France, that's a great ride.
Magnificent performance, really. This man has been very consistent throughout this year's Tour de France. He expects to come here as a worker for Alex Zülle. In fact, just 1 week before the Tour finished, he finished second to his own teammate in the Tour of Catalonia. But he's had to assume a different role because of the disappearance of those two leaders, and he's done so quite admirably.
It's amazing to think that he started here in support of Laurent Jalabert and Alex Zülle. Zülle is wallowing in the lower parts of the classification, and Jalabert, of course, he retired on the road to Gap when we were in the Alps. And so Patrick Jonker has become the leader of the team, and he's actually riding like one. He's had a very good day yesterday as well, finishing in the second group alongside Tony Rominger and, of course, Miguel Indurain. The other place rider overall in this group is Michele Bartoli. He's 22nd overall, 46 minutes off the race lead, but will improve a little bit on that today. But this is the sort of move that we would have expected as we leave the Pyrenees, because the riders racing to the other side of the big mountains and to the flatlands, just south of Biarritz at Hendaye. And there they will really enjoy themselves, because I think all the finishers today, unless they take ill now, Paul, will see Paris.
Well, I can almost see the Champs-Élysées and the Arc de Triomphe on the horizon. They will be very happy, I think, this evening when they get to the finish line by the coast here, because they will realise that Paris is just around the corner.
Well, a quick glimpse of the bunch there, but we go back up to the road and we find that one rider has gone clear, and it looks like Christian Salvato, number 168. And I'm sorry about the picture breakup today, but we are in a little bit of trouble without those motorbikes down there. There is the breakaway itself, and Salvato taking his chance to go clear.
It's a long way to go, especially from such a big group as this, because once we get onto the flatter part of the course, the group is so big, I feel they'll all work together and try and pull him back. So he's taken a risk there, attacking so far out.
Well, he's looking at still the best part of 40 kilometers to go to the finish. That's 25 miles. They're saying already he's got 30 seconds. We're on the descent here to the Puerto Osondo. No more mountains left of any note now in this year's Tour de France. The chasers, though, are going to have to work out how they're going to pull back the man who's going for gold today, Christian Salvato. We'll take a break.
The publicity caravan was still in its developmental stages when the Tour came to Hendaye in 1928. But the race was in full flow. Back in a couple of minutes. Maurice de Waal of Belgium was riding his second Tour in 1928, and he led the peloton along the seafront at Hendaye to win the stage. It wasn't enough to dent the lead of Nicolas France, though. He led from beginning to end, and although de Waal got the kiss from the future Credit Lyonnais girl, he finished third. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of the Pyrenees, a motorway service station car park isn't the first image that comes to mind. Nonetheless, this is the site for a new sculpture commemorating the history of the Tour in this region. If you can manage to block out the Europop wafting over from the cafeteria, it's actually quite an impressive experience. The sculpture, which stands 60 feet high, took 2 years to construct and cost £650,000. Funding was supplied by the Tour de France organisation, the local council and the Motorway Authority. The inspiration came from French artist Jean-Bernard Mette, who won an international competition to land the commission for the job. The structure, aluminium with riders cast in bronze, was officially opened in June at a ceremony which included quite a few past Tour winners. And to add context to the visual impact, all around the perimeter are panels detailing great moments and great riders associated with the Pyrenees since the race first went over them in 1910. All in all, well worth a stop if you're ever on the A64 between Sources 9 and 10. Well, I have to say I wouldn't recommend the coffee from the automatic vending machine. All right, that's it from me for the moment. Back to the racing with Phil and Paul.
Well, thanks, Gary. I must say some people have strange tastes. Right, back to the race here. We're now in 15 kilometres to go from the finish. The banner should be seen very shortly. This breakaway is still more or less together, but they are continually attacking one another. We've had an attack from Salvato. He was caught. We've had an attack by Bob Voskamp, Fedegato, Eddie Breukink. At the moment, they are more or less coming back together again.
Very dangerous part of the race here as well, because if you're in the wrong move at the wrong time, you can lose all chances of winning by missing the split. Everybody here, I think, wants to try and get clear, and Fedegato is trying to cover the move so that he can try and stay in the front part of the splits and go away for the victory. But it looks again as if that is Bart Voskamp from TVM, who's waited for a slight slowing in that lead group to launch a counter-attack.
So Bart Voskamp for TVM trying to get clear. This is a very good stage if a Dutchman could win it, because now the roads are flat, they might feel a little bit happier. Voskamp has got the gap. He's been trying to get everybody on the move in the breakaways, and it seems he hasn't been successful, so he's going by himself. It looks as though Eddie Breukink is trying to bridge the gaps there. He's already had a bike change about 5 or 6 kilometres ago. Well, as you can see from this picture, the motos are back in business. There was a conversation with the Tour director, Jean-Marie Leblanc, and I don't quite know what he said, but then the pictures came back, so it looks as though they've decided to come back to work for the last part of the stage today. There's Christian Hen going through now at a rush. Chance to be free from team duties in this breakaway. He came along as the policeman. And now he's able to take part and try and get a stage win as well. Bart Voskamp and Bruno Thibaut trying to give Motorola a team win, or rather a stage win, in the Tour de France this year.
It's hard to recognize all the Motorola riders at the moment. They went to the same barber. They've all got exactly the same haircut, and that was administered by the team doctor. It must be something to do with the heat that has reigned over the Tour de France. He feels it might be a little bit fresher.
Well, I can see why he's the team doctor, Paul. The line still working well, but in fact Voskamp trying to nose Boscardin further up that line. He's gone to the back there as we go into the 10-kilometre banner. He wants to see Boscardin put some work in this breakaway, because, you know, riders say if you've got the strength to be with us, then you should help us, otherwise go away. Thibaut comes back, and just in front of Thibaut we have Bartoli. So the line still working together. Boscardin has found his way into the passenger seat again, while the race is being driven on by the MG rider.
They're all working fairly well together at the moment, and it really is an excellent move. The gap has opened up to 15 seconds, but there's still an awful long way to go. And if they get close to the finish and they start playing around, well, they could still get caught by the remains of that group.
Grimace there by Christian Hen. He's either driving the peloton in defence of the team leader, or he's driving the breakaway here in the chance of a stage win. Flicks his arm there, calling through the next man. Boscardin actually is suffering quite badly, but he's now prepared to try and help them as he goes through. And we'll get a chance to look down the road and see that 10-second gap has certainly opened, not by a lot, probably 15 or 16 seconds now. A short turn by Bart Voskamp. And in fact, this is Alberto Elli here, who grits his teeth and comes through. But you see the line is not working well. And I was about to say they'd lost Christian Hen, but he'd gone to the inside of our cameras and took a flyer through the inside. He's decided he's going to have to do something to liven up this breakaway. They're very, very quick to react. Even Bruno Boscardin hanging on the back there.
Well, that was a very good move by Hen. He waited to see that little bit of disconcertion coming in through the riders there. They didn't know exactly how they should work themselves together. This is a tough part of the course coming over the cliffs here. And, you know, Hen has opened up. Voskamp has gone straight across to him. And now the work is left up to Bartoli.
Well, they're going to catch the wind a little bit on the cliffside here. Look at that huge crowd there, a holidaying crowd here in France, enjoying the passage of the Tour. The first time we've been to Hendaye. And there's still every reason to think that that chase group might get on, because they're having a bit of trouble in this breakaway. We've got this small split.
be hard to close down now. This is a tough part of the course as we go over the brow of the hill. But Voskamp won't do a lot of work, I don't think, with Christian Hen at the moment, because he's, as I said, in fact, he nearly fell off as he tried to come round him, looking over to see where the rest of the group was. He's gone through on Christian Hen, but the reaction now coming at the front again is the MG rider Bartoli, who's put in the effort in to try and get up there.
It looks as though they might get back, but they'll have to concentrate on the chase, because if they hesitate, they'll stretch the elastic that little bit too much. Alberto Eli, Boscardin, Thibaut, that's the three we're with here. But Voskamp, who has agitated for some kilometres now, is in a move again that could well be the decisive one. But he is putting a lot of work on the shoulders of Christian Hen. But the Telecom team, my goodness me, they've got some good form this year.
Quite magnificent. You can see the speed that Hen is going here. He's giving everything he can out of his body to get over the top of this hill, so that they then know that the race plunges down into the finish. Voskamp stays in the wheel a little bit, just recuperates. It's a dangerous move. He's done that a couple of times now, looked over his shoulder, and he's got Christian Hen on the other side, and he tended to move across, and he's bounced into Hen once or twice, and that could well be that he's really not too sure about the gap that they've got.
Well, I think with the gap that they have got, it should be enough if they concentrate on staying away rather than worrying about the whereabouts of those three behind. Hen certainly is very, very strong, an Olympic medalist back in 1988 in Seoul. Well, they're going to feel pretty pleased in themselves now as they race towards the finishing line today. No more huge mountains to dream of tonight when they go to bed. Just the flatlands and the winelands of the Bordeaux region. And so they can feel they can use up a little bit of energy, those that have got any left at this stage of the Tour de France. There's the old arm flick again. But Hen is really pushing himself to the limit here. And Voskamp may be riding at about 90%. And, well, he may be saving just something for the sprint.
Well, he's a clever rider when it comes down to the finish. He hasn't won a race this year. A couple of years ago, he had two pretty good victories, though, one in the Tour of Spain and another one as Criterium in Holland. And you've got to be a fast rider to win a race up there. Voskamp letting Hen do all the work. Let's not forget, Hen is the man who launched the attack first, so he's the one who has more responsibility to the success of this two-man breakaway.
And the relay goes on, but every time we come back to this chasing group of three, we only ever see Bruno Thibaut setting the pace. And so I'm not sure the same cohesion exists in this back three here.
I think Bruno Boscardin is hanging on by the skin of the teeth. He wanted to get across into this split because he felt he would have a good chance of winning the sprint, but he didn't have the strength to in fact contribute to the success of it, which is why I think Christian Hen attacked. He didn't want to drag a man like Boscardin all the way down to the finish.
But now, unfortunately for Christian at the moment anyway, he's got Voskamp with him. And it's going to be a pretty difficult sprint for Hen to beat unless he can maneuver Voskamp into the front. And the fast riders from Holland that usually are pretty good at maneuvering the other people in front as they approach the finish. French flags waving. We've crossed the borders now, and we go under the 3 kilometre to go banner. And it looks to me as though Voskamp is beginning to look the stronger of the two here. Hen delayed a little bit in coming through. Voskamp took note of that, I'm sure.
Hen really been pushing on the pedals all the time. He's never once feigned any weakness. He's never showed any sign of faltering. He's pushed on the pedals all the time, and he obviously didn't contribute a whole lot to the breakaway in the early part of it because his job was to protect his team leader. That is why they sent him into that breakaway, so he should be the freshest. But when it comes down to the finish for the victory of a stage of the Tour de France, it may well be that Voskamp is the man who's just got a little bit more finesse in the two-up sprint.
But either way, it's another great performance here by the Telecom team. They are making absolutely no mistakes in this year's Tour de France.
Just caught a sight there, you see, of Christian Hen at the back. They're just tightening up the Velcro straps on his shoes. A lot of riders over the last few years have gone over to these new quicker way of fastening up the shoes there. And before you come to a sprint, riders will just tighten those Velcro up a little bit just to give themselves a little bit of self-assurance. During the rest of the stage, they try and keep them loose so their feet don't overheat.
And running down before this enormous crowd onto the Esplanade here at the finishing line, and now they're going to see the finish very shortly. It's a long way down the seafront, though, very difficult to judge. At least the dense crowd is going to keep the wind off the riders coming in there off the sea.
A very difficult sprint to judge as well. Just checking there how far it was to go. The two riders have worked together as friends over the last few kilometres, but the end of this long straightaway, a stage victory in the Tour de France is at stake. A difficult one to judge too, because of the wind will be pushing the riders right the way across into the barriers.
Now, I wonder if the riders will opt to go at the line side by side. They very rarely do that. They will try to outmaneuver each other, I'm sure. It looks like the kilometre banner down the road. There is the crowd enjoying the beach here. There aren't many on it now with the Tour de France going by, though. There they all are, watching the riders come in. This breakaway today deciding the Tour de France. Some 14 riders having been away for half of the race. They've made massive time gains over the yellow jersey field, but of course big time gains don't really make much difference at this stage of the Tour de France. Not to these riders anyway. 1 kilometre to go.
Well, Hen now trying to look over his shoulder and see what the position is of those three riders behind. And Voskamp taking the position of forcing the German rider to stay at the front. He's got to be calm and collected now and force the German rider to lead out the sprint. If he can come out of his slipstream, that is exactly the tactic he would like to adopt.
Well, I was saying earlier, the Dutch know how to do it best, and they've manoeuvred. Voskamp has manoeuvred Hen into the lead. He's not going to be coming back now until he's sure he opens up his sprint. He wants the benefit of coming out of the shadow of Christian Hen. Hen is going to go all over the road and try and force Voskamp to make his move. By keeping over to the left of the road, he will force Voskamp at least to come from the right. He'll know that much. But they can't wait too long as they both look over together there to see just where the rest of the riders are. They're not very far behind. Hen now looks at Voskamp, who is quite relaxed to wait as long as possible. He's going to make Hen make the first rush for the line. It's a very nervous few moments for both riders here. But there's no good expecting Voskamp to come through now. It's going to be Hen who will open up the run for the line. Voskamp will see if he can just hide in his slipstream long enough to snip him on the line. It's going, and now Hen goes. Hen starts to wind up. Voskamp kicks very strongly. And Voskamp is going to make certain of the stage win for TVM in the Tour de France. He gets it very convincingly, and Hen knows it. So Voskamp gets the stage victory. Christian Hen, the champion of Germany, a bronze medalist in the Olympic Games 8 years ago, he is second. And now the sprint for third place. Now can Bruno Boscaden find a little bit of strength? He's off to the right and he can't. He is absolutely shattered. So Bruno Thibault from Motorola is going to be beaten, or is he, by Alberto Eli? And I think he is, because Eli comes away for third, Thibault fourth, and at the back there in fifth place, Bruno Boscaden. Pat Jonker going to gain a lot of time today. He's just hanging on to the tail of the breakaway. It does look as though Alonso may have gone that little bit early, because Ferragato grits his teeth and tries to come through on the right of our picture with Eric Breukink. And Ferragato now kicks, and he'll be kicking himself tonight because he should have won the stage with his finish, but he allowed the breakaway to slip off them very near to the end. There's the man gaining most, Patrick Jonker of Australia. Confirmation of the result as Bart Voskamp gets Holland's third win of the Tour. Second was Christian Hen, the German champion, and third Alberto Eli of Italy. The main field came in 16 minutes and 56 seconds behind. They were in no hurry today, and they were led home by Eric Zabel in 15th place. He gets one more point towards that green jersey competition, but mathematically he could still lose it over the remaining 3 days. Chris Boardman of Britain was safely in the pack as well. A rather startled Bart Voskamp on the podium tonight after taking full advantage of the truce among the leaders. And after he came down, he spoke to Paul Sherwin.
Christian Hen was the strongest man in the breakaway. You waited for him to go, and then you just had a little bit of a hard time to stay with him.
I don't think he was the strongest. I showed when I go easily to him, and in the beginning he did no work, so normally I knew he had some reserve, but I also made the attack before, and then the other ones came up, so I don't think he was the strongest.
You've had a very hard season this year with you broke the bone in the start of the year in the Ruta del Sol. It's been very tough for you to come and win a stage of the Tour de France. Must be great.
Yeah, it must be very great. It is very great. But yeah, I was a little bit unlucky, and this tour was for me good. I tried sometimes, but to win it's another problem. And today it was everything goes great. And
when there were only two of you left at the end, did you feel that you could beat him in the sprint, or was it a little scary?
No, I knew I could beat him because on the hills I noticed he was not so strong anymore as the first attack. So I know I could beat him, and he was a little bit nervous, and that's not good to win.
And no change at all tonight among the top 6 men in this race. Bjarne Riis can tick off another day in yellow, and right behind him his teammate Jan Ullrich and Richard Virenque in 3rd slot. The rider who gained most was the Aussie Pat Jonker, who moved up from 17th today to now ride high in 12th place. Chris Boardman, who finished safely, he looks set now to finish his first Tour de France in Paris on Sunday. On the podium tonight, Bjarne Riis, he can afford a smile. He becomes more relaxed as the race now turns north for home. And this last day in the Pyrenees, finding the big names of this tour ready to take a rest, and who can blame them? A quick reminder about our competition. Pick the winner for Sunday stage into Paris and phone your selection to 0891 11 44 00. So on a day when a Dutch rider won, Boskamp found, very strangely, not too many people about to take his photograph. They were all on motorbikes and therefore they were all on strike. I'm sure tomorrow night the Tour de France will have been seen to be back to normal. See you at 6:25. Goodbye.